What? Due to experience. Do you know not to F with? Vibrating logs in the forest. Don't investigate. Don't kick it. Don't throw things at it. It is always hornets. Reminds me of the post that said something like, no matter how superstitious you aren't, you still shouldn't go near suspiciously clean bones in the forest, because those bones may have been cleaned off by fire ants that decided to nest around the bones for more convenient access. Aggressive drivers. Just let them go. Same. I learned that people like to drive while armed, and they will pull it out for any little thing these days. Yep. I remember when I was in middle school, there was a grandma and very young grandson who honked on the horn after a dude cut her off and almost hit her. The guy retaliated by shooting at the car, killing the grandson. If someone at work tries to badmouth someone else and they ask you about what you think about that person, just keep your mouth shut. Ladders. I worked in an ED at a major trauma center, and the number of otherwise healthy people who came in paralyzed or soon to be dead from falling off ladders was eye-opening. I climb trees for a living. I've been in 100+ foot tall trees plenty of times. No worries. If I get 8 feet up on a ladder, I start to get nervous. They're great tools, but can be sketchy as a mother trucker. Head injuries. I had a single friend that got into a barroom scuffle. He got knocked down to hit his on a tiled floor, got back up and said, "That's it for tonight." He lived alone and that was on a Friday night. When he didn't show for work on Monday with a no call, that raised some eyebrows. When he didn't show on Tuesday, someone went out to his place and broke in. After no answer, he was dead on the kitchen floor. Doctor guessed a brain bleed. I think about him every time I see a video of someone getting knocked out. Edit. It's only been a couple of hours since I've posted this comment, and I don't regret saying it, but I'm sorry for having dredged up so many sad stories. Not immediately washing and disinfecting an open wound. My mom knew a guy that had to have his leg chopped off because the cut got infected. It was insane. Chop. The infection kept coming. Chop some more. He survived, but he lost a leg. Spent a long time in the hospital. Trusting people's blinkers to mean they are turning. My driver's ed teacher always said, the only thing a blinker truly tells you is that the bulb is working. It stuck with me. Waves. Nobi body surfer misjudged a 6-foot wave and nearly drowned. I was standing about waist deep at the beach, and a wave knocked me on my butt, pulled me out a little, and washed me back up. All I remember was sky and water. My friends thought a riptide got me. Electricity. While working at a hydro dam, I witnessed a main power line detach from the generator and arc across the floor for about 10 seconds, withering like a snake. It gouged melted a deep trench in solid concrete. Chickens. While there are chicks present, my brother is a cruel little shit who liked being mean to animals. While we were kids, he liked hurting them for the feeling of power it gave him, so he hurt a lot of small wildlife, like frogs and garter snakes and mice. When that stopped being enough, he decided to go after livestock. We had chickens. There was a great big rooster and his ladies and all of them had chicks. My job was to take care of the chickens, feed, water them, collect eggs, etc. My brother was bigger and stronger than me, so one day he decided to have fun and grabbed up one of the little chicks in the coop and squeezed it until it started to scream for help. My attempts to stop him did nothing. Now, the chickens were used to me picking up the chicks and petting them, so they weren't alarmed when my brother picked up the chick. When it screamed, however, all hell broke loose. All the chickens went after him, going for his face and eyes. The rooster had spurs on his legs, over an inch long, and he cut big grooves on my brother's face, missing his eyes by millimeters. They swarmed him and bullied him until he dropped the chick and ran out of the coop crying, with blood on his face. He was 10 at the time and should have known better. Did he stop being mean to animals? No. Did they punish him for it when they could? The animals sure did. Chickens are very much like the cuckoos in the Zelda games. If you hurt one, they will all swarm you. My health. Getting older, you rediscover all those old hurts. When I was 20, I hyperextended both elbows playing volleyball. 15 years later my elbows started aching in the winter. Also my teeth. It falls under health, but not everyone thinks about the dentist when they think about health. If you are reading this, please floss. It's a small thing that can make a huge difference later. Trust me. Being careless in the shower. A few years ago, I was showering and I forgot the new bottle of conditioner sitting in the counter. I slipped on some shampoo residue in a rush to get out of the shower because no like cold air. I slammed my ribs against the porcelain tub, completely knocked the wind out of me, but I somehow managed to crawl out of the shower and bathroom to make it to my phone, genuinely thinking I would have to call an ambulance to take my naked ass to the hospital. Thankfully that wasn't necessary, as I laid down and caught my breath, but I had pretty bad rib pain for at least a month after, and only a tiny bruise to show for it. After that experience, I could absolutely see how falling in the shower can kill a person. Anyway, now I don't rush when exiting the shower, and I always bring my phone in the bathroom, because that naked, wet crawl on the floor to retrieve it was humiliating, and I'd rather not go through it again. Our old housemate got super baked and slipped in the shower afterward. While just me and my now husband were there, I heard a horrible thud, and then him wailing. My now husband had to bust in the door and pull him out of the shower because he went silent and wasn't responding to us yelling for him. By the time we got up the stairs, he knocked his head so hard he started convulsing and having a seizure. Had to call an ambulance. He thankfully got away with a concussion. Fridays. In the IT world, we call it read-only Friday. Don't change anything. If I see another engineer on the team do a deploy on Friday, I set myself to do not disturb. We have informal Fridays, a high priority bug fixes only guideline. Intuition. If something feels wrong, stop. It doesn't matter if it's stepping out onto a snow-covered slope, pulling up to a sketchy gas station, or putting too small of a piece of wood in a table router. Listen when your brain tells you this is a bad idea. Garage door springs. Pay a professional to mess with that shit. Dear lord, that's terrifying. The tension on those things is immense. Had one snap a few years ago, and my home office is above the garage. I jumped out of my chair so hard, it was louder than a large caliber gunshot and rang in my ears for about an hour. Meth ruined my life for a while, and I had to fight tooth and nail to get it back. 18 months clean. For real. When you hear not to try meth, not even once, heed that warning. Never trust a trench or a hole over your shoulders deep. You will die a horrible death. Yes, at the beach too. I think the rule is belly deep. Any higher in the dirt, or whatever falling in, can crush your lungs and make it impossible to breathe. Drowsy driving. Eater. Back in 2015, I had an incident where I fell asleep behind the wheel. It was in mid-August, and I had fallen asleep on my way home from work after a 16-hour night shift because my job messed up the schedule. We couldn't work more than 12 in a single shift. All I remember is I was driving, then I was waking up in a hospital, 4 hours away from home. No clue where I was or what happened. I had suffered a major B and have been mentally different ever since. Had a pretty major concussion following the accident. It happened in the backroads of southern Idaho, and I was lucky to have come out of it with 0 broken bones. Everyone at the hospital was saying I was lucky to have survived. There were witnesses who saw the whole wreck, a couple high schoolers on their lunch. I read the police report and witness statements, and according to them, my car rolled 6.5 times, ended wheels up, and I was partially ejected, laying half in and half out of the car through the window. My seatbelt buckle had broken as the car was coming to rest. The ocean, or any body of water, really? Yeah man. I live in Michigan and way too many tourists do not realize what Lake Michigan is. The thing will kill ya in a moment's notice. If ya aren't careful, respect her. Always notice the Coast Guard's helicopter go over a whole load more during the Coast Guard festival. Precipitation when it is cold outside. I got caught in a snowstorm in Shenandoah National Park in March 2019. It was 50 in the valley, but I got 2 feet of snow on the top of the ridge. The forecast did not call for any precipitation that day. I was hiking on the Appalachian Trail and thought that a few flurries were nothing to worry about. I left a lean-to shelter that would have kept me dry and protected from the wind. I hiked less than 6 miles and was struggling to move forward because the snow was so deep. I was soaked to the bone, freezing cold, and beginning to lose fine muscle control in my fingers. The trail followed the side of a ridge and was not providing me any flat spaces to set up a tent. I eventually found a clearing where some power lines crossed the trail and struggled to get my tent erected despite the loss of feeling in my fingers. Once my tent was set up, I got my sleeping pad and sleeping bag deployed, got out of my wet clothes and crawled into the bag for an hour to warm up. I didn't even have a cell signal where I could let someone know my exact location and that I was okay. I had been in contact the previous evening, so my girlfriend knew my location to within a couple of miles. The snowstorm lasted all night and I had to spend a full 24 hours in the tent before the snow stopped. The next day after the snow stopped, I packed up my camp and kept hiking through the 2 feet of snow. The trail crossed Skyline Drive after a short distance and I followed that road for 9 miles to the nearest park entrance. I called a shuttle and spent the night in Waynesboro, VA at a hiker hostel. The warm shower, book dryer, and warm food were exquisite. When you make an error in judgment in the wilderness, the goal is to survive long enough to learn from your mistake. I learned my lesson. I will not screw around when dealing with precipitation and cold weather. If there is any doubt, I will just hunker down and wait for the wet weather to pass. Water, rivers, current. I'm a fairly good swimmer, and I wanted to swim in a river where the current seemed really tame. Boy was I wrong. Just small moving body of water dragged my poor body like a leaf in the wind. Cat bites. I love cats, but got bit by one once. Spent 3 days in the hospital and there were talks of amputating 2 of my fingers and maybe half of another finger. Had intense IV antibiotics and came out fine, but was scary for a couple days. Animal bites in general. My sister is in physical therapy from a dog attack last month that left her hospitalized for a week from infection. I was so worried for her. Glad they didn't have to amputate any of your fingers. The HR frequent flyer. It doesn't matter if you didn't do anything wrong. They will still make your work life unbearably annoying if you dare upset them. You don't even have to upset them to get caught up in their crap. We had a guy consistently late, to the point it affected his work, and our boss called him out on it. He went to HR saying, the rest of us weren't held to a start time, which was true. We're all salaried and would roll in 8:35, 8:40, hang around the coffee machine and chit chat, but then we'd get our work done. Because of his lateness, we all had to be butts in seats at 8:30. Luckily I was already in the process of moving departments. Bedbugs. You can't treat those mother effers by yourself. You need a professional to treat that shit. People always go on and on about mosquitoes being demons, but no, that's actually bedbugs. Bedbugs were created by Satan himself in the fiery pits of hell. Student loans. Only take what you need. Don't get the, oh, I'll pay this later attitude. It will come back to bite you, and the loan companies are relentless. No one teaches a 17-18-year-old kid about student loans and long-term consequences. You ever slide down a staircase on a pillow or a mattress? 10-year-old me thought going down, head first, inside a sleeping bag, was a great way to up the rush. Turns out, going into shock is not fun. Tried it once, head first on a life-size cardboard advertising cutout of Pamela Stevenson. Staircase had a 90-degree corner in it. I really don't know what else I expected to happen. Having allergies and very bad asthma. Can attest. Allergies trigger the asthma, and the asthma can end you quickly. Had a stretch years back where I was in the ER 14 times in 12 years. On one occasion twice in one day. 4 times on the drive there. I started to panic and flail in the passenger seat, which didn't help the driver at all. One time, the ambulance was called. They gave me as much epinephrine as they were allowed to give to try to bring me out of it. I had stopped breathing and radioed the doctor for permission to give another dose. Doc okayed it, but said if that didn't do it to code me, code means dead. Thankfully, it worked. Scary as hell to not be able to draw our breath and know you're on your way out. Medical screening. Get the mammogram annually. Get the colonoscopy on whatever schedule you are on. I missed my 2016 mammo. In 2017 I was fine. In 2018 I had breast cancer. Had I missed 2018 instead of 2016, I'd likely be dead now. Heat. Your sanity is the first thing to go in heat stroke. You aren't even aware anything is wrong. You just know you're pissed. There's a weird buzzing sensation in your chest, and the world doesn't feel right. And then, you're a zombie looking for anything to cool off with, and shortly after that, you're unconscious. It escalated too quickly for half a dozen rational adults to notice before exhaustion set in. Heat will kill you quicker than you think. Male lions. Hand-fed one. And my effing Christ are they huge. I can reach close to 8 feet in height, on tiptoes with my arm in the air, and this beast was easily able to stand up to take the food. He didn't even roar. It was a vocalization, a sort of chuffing noise, and it proper hits you in the chest and turns your insides to water. Seriously, I'd blown my ears out on Slayer gigs for decades, but this 37th fella, just basically talking to me, hit me harder than any riff I'd ever heard. Had the female lions lick blood off my hand. Their tongues are like human biceps, but with added sandpaper. That day changed me. I've never felt more fragile and insignificant. Deep water. Almost drowned in a scuba diving accident back in 2010, but thanks to the quick thinking and appropriate actions of my hubby, who was right there with me, I lived to type this comment today. I'm an ER doc and see people die get F up all the time. In no particular order, these are the things I'm afraid of that I never would have considered dangerous before. Trampolines, ladders, coil springs, rotors, large spinning machinery and gloves, carbon monoxide, Tylenol, fentanyl, scuba diving, cat bites, shitty car jacks, a seizure in an old person, farmers, pit bulls, swimming pools, ectopic pregnancies, pulmonary emboli, really bad asthma, lupus, type 2 diabetes, the pancreas, the esophagus, the trachea, ticks, mosquitoes, head injuries, lakes, a scorned woman, an angry drunk person, a truly psychotic person. Victorian era sex toys. I was a venue manager during the Edinburgh Fringe, and a company had a bunch of weird props for an Edgar Allan Poe themed show. One of these transpired to be a glass Victorian dildo. One night, a drunken audience member knocked it over, and it smashed. I went to clean it after the show ended, but overheard a performer, already on the phone for the fire brigade, saying that it contained mercury. They did not include this information in their risk assessments. Fire brigade come out, take a look, and say, well, that's not mercury. We're gonna have to call biohazard in, because it's an old foreign chemical that we can't safely identify. The show had finished at 11:55 p.m. I couldn't leave until 3 a.m. We never found out what the mysterious sex liquid was. Mental health. Take care of your emotional state, ladies and gents. Don't let go of yourself. It's never too late to get help. Living in misery actually isn't actually normal. Sometimes we just need a bit of help to get to a better place. We need this to be higher up. Stress kills, and everyone needs to work on being their own best friend in their head. Repetition of being kind to yourself. It's not much different than going to the gym and building muscle, practicing an instrument and getting better, or anything else, really. You just can't see it because you're always in it. Nap time. I teach swim lessons, so I'm often with the toddler and preschool set. One of the first questions I ask now, when arranging a meeting time, is whether the kid still naps. Yes, great. We're gonna avoid that time and like 30 minutes before and after it. Trust, as a parent of a 3-year-old, I make darn sure I don't sign my dude up for anything close to his nap time. That would be an awful experience. What parents don't think of that? His naps are the key to my sanity. Cactus. Listen guys, I know this seems like pure common sense, but some cacti have really pretty flowers that don't look harmless at all until you touch it, and then you have 1,000 microfiber pieces of glass embedded in your skin, and there's no hope of getting it out, and it's days of torture. Yes, I'm an idiot. Please learn from me. This happened to a friend's kid. She put her hands right on a fuzzy looking cactus. The solution to removal was multiple coats of white Elmer's glue. Layer it on, let it dry, and peel it off. Repeat until the barbs are all gone. Their child cooled down while the glue was on her hands, and she was fascinated by the peeling process, plus slowly out of excruciating pain. I've used it to remove fiberglass from my own hands. Copperheads. I got them all over my yard. Fortunately I have not been bit, but had a very close 6-inch distance call last summer. The snake made a run for it rather than bite, and that is why I was not bit. So what is my point? You cannot see these things. You look at pictures of them and think, yo, I would be able to see that right on the ground in front of me. Yeah, no. That 6-inch close call was after I inspected the area closely before pulling weeds. Could not see him. He was right there. This particular snake freezes when threatened, and that is the other problem. I almost have stepped on one twice. Once again in the middle of the day I am walking in the dry grass. Look to my left. There is a huge copperhead. Could not see it till I was right on it. Fortunately I was 3 feet away when I spotted him. He was right there in the open, just curled up. Could not see him till 3 feet away. Now I have to wear snake boots when in my yard, because sooner or later I am going to step on one. They will bite at the ankle, foot or lower leg. So got all that covered in thick boots. Fire ants. I walked barefoot in soft grass along the side of a golf course in Palm Springs. Effing fire ants crawled up my feet. Thousands of stings all over my feet and ankles. Worse was that I had to drive 13 hours north the next day with huge swollen feet. They were so swollen that I couldn't even wear flip-flops. I ended up having to see a doctor and get IV antibiotics and a course of steroids due to infection and inflammation. I still have scars on my feet and ankles 4 years later. Don't mess with those little effers. Dogs. Absolutely dogs. Don't get me wrong. Dogs are incredible and they have the capacity for so much love and so much good. I think dogs are one of the best things on the planet. But a sick dog or a scared dog or an injured dog or a mentally unstable dog can do an insane amount of damage with its teeth. I work with lots of dogs and got a level 4 bite from a normally perfectly well behaved dog. She was an angel to work with. Obedient, loving, loyal, gentle, intelligent, and overall everything you could ever want in a dog. She got sick though, and another dog hit one of the areas that was more tender, and the next thing you know, she's latching onto the closest thing to her with those teeth, which happen to be my leg. It's called misplaced aggression, and is strictly a self-defense response. But boy, this seemingly perfect dog left me with bite scars that will last the rest of my life. The second she realized she bit me, as she came out of that fear state, she released and she was mortified. She licked me all over, and the next several times I saw her she licked at my bandages and then my scar. It was obvious she felt awful about it. And yes, the vet proved there was a specific, well more like multiple specific, health issue that caused this. She had an infection in her vagina and systemic inflammation from an immune system issue, and the other dog fell into her behind area, and I was walking beside her by her head. Anyways, don't mess with dogs. Don't mess with strange dogs. Don't mess with sick dogs. Don't mess with fearful dogs. Don't mess with injured dogs. Take every precaution you can if you are rescuing a dog like this. Better safe than sorry. A level 4 bite was enough to make me second guess my relationship with my dogs, and my dogs are my whole world. I adore my dogs. Those bites are incredibly traumatic though. They're really painful. I can't even imagine a level 5 bite, mauling, or seeing a level 6 bite, killing. We get so used to our friendly, furry companions that it's easy to become complacent about their predatory prowess and their self-defense capacity.